The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Tuesday, September 28th, 2021. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Republicans block debt ceiling hike. Meanwhile, Democrats to offer a clean continuing resolution and pass the debt ceiling somehow on their own. Meanwhile, on the infrastructure side of things, Pelosi tries to bulldoze progressives. Kirsten Sinema is hosting a corporate fundraiser for opponents of Biden's said infrastructure plans. Meanwhile, the Biden administration publishes a new rule which should permanently protect at least some dreamers. Sherrod Brown to introduce the legislation barring Fed members from trading securities in the wake of two resignations of Fed members for shady trading. Pfizer submits data looking for approval for kids 5 to 11 to get shots. Could happen by Halloween. New York City teachers' vaccine mandate moves forward now, while New York State is looking to fill gaps in their medical personnel for folks who refuse the vaccination with the National Guard. Senate and House Armed Services committees are hearing testimony on the Afghanistan pullout. And lastly, John Hinckley Jr., Ronald Reagan's would-be assassin, to be freed in June. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Tuesday. Joining me, as always, Emma Vigeland. Hello, Emma.
Hello, Sam.
It is Tuesday. This is a crazy week for all the legislation. Just, before we get into all this stuff today.
All the legislation, all the stuff.
All the stuff. I can't help but think that when the Republicans were in this situation in 2017, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer walked into Donald Trump's office and said, "Don't worry. We're going to clear the decks of all of this, half this stuff for you." And I think they thought they were going to get something. They were convinced they were going to sweet talk Donald Trump.
The guy who notoriously backs out of contracts and screws people over in real estate deals. Yeah,
yes.
They were going to just in good faith get something out of him.
Exactly. And what they did do is midwife the Trump tax cuts and make it much easier to pass those because much easier when you don't have to navigate 14 different things at any given time. But speaking of Donald Trump, let us turn our attention first today to an amazing statistic that apparently came from Charles Gaba, who has a Substack and is a doctor. I think he's a doctor. He writes about medical stuff. And then it was written in the New York Times. And it really is just stunning data about the difference of COVID in red states versus blue states. Do we have this, put up this graphic here? This is really stunning stuff.
Yeah, this went a little bit viral yesterday just because of how clear that is. That's from July 1st to September 23rd.
When Delta becomes the prominent form of COVID in the country. At the beginning of COVID, blue states tended to have more COVID because there was no vaccine that existed. And while
it hit New York first,
and
notoriously.
It hit New York first, and people were less prepared. And
population
densities. But then with Delta, by the time Delta rolls around, we start to see divergences in vaccinations. There were initially, during the early months of the vaccinations, demographic groups that lagged in receiving vaccination shots. Black Americans, Latino Americans, and Republican voters were sort of the three big cohorts. The gaps between Black Americans, Latino Americans, indigenous people have shrunk dramatically in terms of white people, broadly speaking. But the partisan gap is pretty massive. A Pew poll last month found that 86% of Democratic voters had received at least one shot, compared with 60% of Republican voters. The political divide, this is according to David Leonhardt in the New York Times, the political divide over vaccination is so large that almost every reliable blue state now has a higher vaccination rate than almost every reliable red state. But it gets worse than that. COVID deaths are now showing a similar pattern.
Well, that's what we're seeing also represented a little by that graph.
That graph. Put that back on. Put that graph back up for a second. And this is deaths per 100,000 residents. Since Delta began circulating widely, in counties where Donald Trump received at least 70% of the vote, super red counties, the virus has killed 47 out of every 100,000 people since the end of June. In counties where Trump has won less than 32% of the vote, it's more or less the flip of that, where Biden won 68% of the vote. The number is 10 out of 100,000. In other words, there's 4.7 times more higher rate of death per 100,000 as a function of people voting for Donald Trump there. In other words, it shows you two things. One, the vaccines work in terms of diminishing deaths. And two, a really enthusiastic Trump voting county, I'd say also Republican voting county, I guess, is they're not getting vaccines, and they're not, and I would imagine it's not just the vaccines; it's also a function of just how seriously they take COVID, because
the more vaccinated counties are more likely to also have mask and other mitigation and
just different practices,
and
right?
Different practices. So you can't draw it 100% to the vaccine, but it's a large proportion of what we're seeing,
without a doubt. And in fact, on the program yesterday, we had someone call in who said he was taking COVID very seriously, but was vaccine hesitant and ended up getting COVID. It was a crazy story. And he sent us an email. We'll talk about that in the second half of the show. Just one more thing to give you a sense of what's going on with this stuff. This is according, again, to David Leonhardt. In an article this month for Breitbart, John Nolte, who I guess is one of the editors there, writers, argued that the partisan gap in vaccination rates was part of a liberal plot. Now
They finally are onto it.
Yes.
Now,
exactly.
how did the libs do this?
We hid it for so long.
Liberals like Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and Anthony Fauci, and of course Howard Stern, had tried so hard to persuade
together.
people to get vaccinated because they knew if they were very vigorous in their promotion of the vaccine, Republicans would do the opposite of what they said.
Well, I mean, we can't underestimate the Republicans' resentment of liberals, and thus we always, we're trying to kill them by advocating for them to save their own lives.
Well, we almost made conservatives
Classic
extinct.
move.
We almost made conservatives extinct in the 19th century when we all said, "Don't go jump off that cliff," and they almost all did.
As absurd as that sounds, I've mentioned before, I was on a panel with the former EPA head, former governor of New Jersey, Christine Todd Whitman. And she made the argument that part of the reason why conservatives deny climate change was because liberals were so convinced that it was real.
That's 100% what it is. We can't underestimate how much resentment of liberal culture is like one of the dominant factors in some of these decisions. I have these conversations. I've had these conversations with conservatives. I'm talking about child tax credit, climate change, Medicare for all, whatever it is. It's all cultural resentment in terms of what's at the top.
It's
of
not even
people's
cultural
voting minds.
resentment. I mean, this is the foundation of the conservative intellectual movement. Is simply like we do the opposite.
Also, like, look what you made me do.
Exactly.
Yes, right. Which is, by the way, what abusers say after they hit their significant others.
Well, in this instance,
Smack himself in the face.
the
Should back
abusers,
it this way.
the abusers and the abused are the same when it comes to COVID. And
They're swinging at the liberals, but then
right, it's swinging around and smacking them
Back
in
into the face.
Operation Baba Booey.
I love the fact that Howard Stern is in on this.
Get him in the control room.
Exactly.
Yes, he was also a part of the plot to kill Prince.
I did not know that.
It's a popular Q theory, the Clintons.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, let's turn our attention to what's happening on the Hill today. Mark Milley, who is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin were testifying both in front of the Senate Armed Services Committee and I think this afternoon the House Armed Services Committee. Largely, they are being questioned on the Afghanistan pullout, which in the final analysis, over 120,000 people were evacuated, and we ended a 20-year-long war there. Net positive. And there are definitely areas of the country that are now sliding backwards in terms of progress that was made with women and other, I guess, Western values, as it were. But for the vast majority of the country, they just wanted the wars to end so that they could actually live, period. Never mind live certain values. And some of them may have had resentment towards these Western values. But the bottom line is that imposing these on a country at the cost of the lives of many of their countrymen turned out to be something they did not want. Here is Mark Milley testifying in front of Senator Tom Cotton, who is really mad that we ended this war.
It's definitely not performative, too, this part. Definitely not.
Always performative,
Yeah.
but this is what he's performing.
Just got one final question. General Milley, I can only conclude that your advice about staying in Afghanistan was rejected. I'm shocked to learn that your advice wasn't sought until August 25th on staying past the August 31 deadline. I understand that you're the principal military advisor, that you advise, you don't decide, the president decides. But if all this is true, General Milley, why haven't you resigned?
Senator, as a senior military officer, resigning is a really serious thing. It's a political act if I'm resigning in protest. My job is to provide advice. My statutory responsibility is to provide legal advice or best military advice to the president, and that's my legal requirement. That's what the law is. The president doesn't have to agree with that advice. He doesn't have to make those decisions just because we're generals. And it would be an incredible act of political defiance for a commissioned officer to just resign because my advice is not taken. This country doesn't want generals figuring out what orders we are going to accept and do or not. That's not our job. The principle of civilian control in the military is absolute. It's critical to this republic. In addition to that, just from a personal standpoint, you know, my dad didn't get a choice to resign at Iwo Jima, and those kids that are at Abbey Gate, they don't get a choice to resign. And I'm not going to turn my back on them. I'm not going to resign. They can't resign, so I'm not going to resign. There's no way. If the orders are illegal, we're in a different place. But if the orders are legal from civilian authority, I intend to carry them out.
Thank you, Senator Cotton.
Now, I appreciated every single thing that Milley had to say, and it was fun to watch Tom Cotton be put in his place over an issue like that. I do think, though, that if the reporting on what Mark Milley did during the end of the Trump administration, though I may be glad he did it, he should resign for that very principle. I mean, and this is a really important distinction I think that people need to make. I can support Mark Milley stopping a lunatic in the White House from starting World War III. But once that threat is over, he's got to resign so that he can maintain the principle he just mentioned. Like, you know, like we hear all these scenarios about, you know, what if the president knew that there was a nuclear weapon in down a well and they had to torture somebody and
just
et cetera, et cetera.
People watch 24 and then have nightmares.
Yeah, exactly.
And play out those scenarios in real life.
Shouldn't torture be legal because of that? No. If the president's in that position and he thinks that torturing is going to save the lives of millions of Americans, the president makes a decision to torture, very much appreciated. And then after the threat is gone, you resign because you want to maintain the value of that principle. We cannot have military leadership usurp civilian leadership. And if military commanders feel it's necessary in the moment to do it, thank you. Now resign. Maybe then maybe they still get their pension. Maybe they don't go to prison, depending on the situation. But you resign because you say, I was put into a situation where I had to defy my core brand proposition, my fundamental orders or whatnot it is. So
and it's also just, I mean, that principle is so important because Matt's pointed this out a few times, like the propensity of the media to talk about the military as separate from the dirty, grimy elements of politics and just looking out for American interests internationally and at home. That's why they love Mark Milley, too, because he's somebody in uniform who can say those things and also dunk on Donald Trump. But the sugar high of those, that usefulness is a bit scarier when applied to the broader principle that you're talking about here.
Right. And I love how Tom Cotton, it's probably the first time he speaks about the president without saying the words commander-in-chief. Yeah.
And saluting.
Exactly.
And then crying red, white, and blue tears. Although I don't know if he's capable of crying.
But there it is. Yeah, I know. There's Milley. And I appreciate what he had to say there. If what was reported about what he did during Trump administration, he probably should have resigned after that fact. And that would have been
not enough resignations and protests in America.
My gosh. No, it would be nice to have that tradition. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking about the debt ceiling, the continuing resolution so that our government doesn't shut down, the bipartisan framework for the infrastructure bill and the reconciliation bill, and how Nancy Pelosi has announced that she is chucking the deal that she made with, frankly, her whole caucus. And we will find out what the progressives are going to do about it. We'll be right back after this. And the this that I'm referring to, of course, are today's sponsors. I still haven't shaved. It's Tuesday. Generally, I like to shave on Sundays, and that carries me, theoretically to Wednesday. Mm-hmm. But usually I let it slide to Friday. This week, I got a little back-footed, and so went to the zoo with Saul, and but I'm going to shave probably tonight or tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning, look, and you're going to be able to look forward to it with
my Harry's razor.
There you go. And
if you don't know Harry's, it is time you do. Harry's was created to be different from other shaving companies. Why? Or how, I should say. Harry's crafts high-quality, long-lasting blades. They are durable, weighted handles that make for a close, comfortable shave, quick and enjoyable. And since Harry's insists you shouldn't have to choose between a great shave and basically mortgaging your home, have to go into the, pharmacy and get one of those sort of razor blade handles that are like ensconced in like an ice fortress. And they charge you an arm and leg. No, Harry's gives you a great shave at a fair price. Refills start as low as $2. And new Harry customers get their starter set. Check it out. 5-blade razor, weighted handle, foaming shave gel with aloe, and a travel cover. $13 value for $3. Harry's also offers a wide range of amazing face and body care products for men, all delivered right to your door. Makes it easy peasy. Check it out. There's never been a better time to try Harry's. You can go to harrys.com/majority. You get their starter set for just $3. It's 100% satisfaction guaranteed, so you got nothing to lose. Go to harrys.com/majority right now and get this special offer. That's Harry's, HARRYS.com/majority. Folks, got a small business. Maybe your kid is selling a bunch of stuff on Depop. Well, you want to save some time? Maybe you don't want to go to the post office. If you're like me, maybe you don't even want to leave your house or your office at any given time. Well,
except to go to and from.
Except for to go to and from, exactly. If there was a tunnel between here and my house.
You hear that, Elon?
Yep, there you go. Stamps.com brings the services of the U.S. Postal Service and UPS shipping right to your computer. Doesn't matter if you're an office sending invoices, whether you got like an Etsy shop or a full-blown warehouse that's shipping out orders. Stamps.com is going to make your life much, much easier. All you need is a computer and a standard printer. You'll get exclusive discounts on postage and shipping from the U.S. Postal Service and UPS. Once your mail is ready, you just schedule a pickup or you drop it off. Plus, with Stamps.com new Rate Advisor tool, you can compare shipping rates and timelines to find out what is your best option. Save time and money with Stamps.com. There's no risk. And with my promo code Majority Report, you get a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a digital scale. There is no long-term commitments, no contracts. Just go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, type in Majority Report. That's Stamps.com, promo code Majority Report. Stamps.com. Never leave your office or home again, unless you want to. You can get postage 24/7 with that. 24/7, 365. You want it at 2 a.m.? Boom, just go print it out.
I'll do it at 2 a.m.
I mean, I was up last night at 2 a.m., and if I had something to mail, I would have done it. Lastly, I have taken some big steps in sort of like stripping stuff out of my apartment and putting in only furniture that is nice. Just at that point where my kid's not going to destroy it. Your home should show off what makes you, you. Joybird offers modern, customizable furniture for every space, available in a variety of vibrant and durable fabric options. Summer's winding down. Joybird has all the modern outdoor furniture and accessories you need to make the most of your patio hangs. You can choose from over 18,000 customization options, or you browse curated collections to find the perfect piece for your style. Joybird's design specialists are standing by to make your vision a reality for free. Joybird is committed to creating quality furniture and a more sustainable future. Their pieces are made using responsibly sourced materials, and they are free of harmful chemicals.
And I love the aesthetic, really. I've been eyeing it and have it on my bookmarks.
Well, they happen to have a showroom.
I've walked through that.
2 blocks from here.
Okay.
Blocks and blocks from here.
Right.
Blocks and blocks. Very far away from us.
Yep.
Anyways.
On the other side of the country.
Yep. Through partnerships with groups like One Tree Planted, Joybird is helping conservation efforts. Joybird, like I said, you get quality craftsmanship, you get stain and scratch resistant fabrics, and a limited lifetime warranty. Joybird stands by its quality. They have a 90-day return policy. If it is not everything you hoped for, you send it back. It's time, folks. Get some furniture that you like. And if you don't like it, you got 90 days to send it back. I don't know what that is, but my computer was just like really took off when I said that. Look, you create a space that brings you joy with Joybird. Visit joybird.com/majority and get 30% off your purchase. That's 30% off. 30% off at joybird.com/majority. Wowza. I don't know what that was.
I see you, Francesca.
There you go.
In that Joybird coach.
Yep.
All right.
It's a Peloton ad or something like that, right?
I don't know. All right. We are back, and let's get into what we have happening over the past 24 hours and looking forward the next 24 or 48. We should start with last night, the Democrats attempted to vote on a bill that would have done 2 things. It contained the continuing resolution. In other words, we don't have a budget at the moment, or we're about to run out of our fiscal year budget. And when you don't have one, the government shuts down because nobody knows what's going to get paid for. There's some things that continue to run essentially like on life support, but there's a government shutdown. The budget is not ready to pass yet. It is part of the reconciliation bill. And they do these continuing resolutions. It was combined with the debt ceiling hike. The debt ceiling hike is this, I don't know what else to say. It is a stupid mechanism in which the government and the legislature spend money, and then they basically pay for the money that they spend, in this instance, by borrowing. And this is something that could be eliminated totally, could be suspended permanently. And they may, in fact, do that. But
it's there, like, for when the opposition party is in power in order to basically say, see, you're being fiscally irresponsible.
That's right.
And then every year we're going to remind you of it. And so that's the function it serves. No one does that better than Mitch McConnell.
Yes. And the thing is, though, I don't know that anybody cares.
The Republicans raised the debt ceiling by trillions during their time, and
right.
Nobody, the wheel turns on. Politically, it has no use.
And like we said, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi were like, we'll take care of that for you last time when Donald Trump was president. Mitch McConnell filibustered, the Republicans filibustered the bill. So now it needs to be split up. The government shutdown bill is going to be brought to the floor. It's going to be a clean version of that bill. And then the Democrats need to figure out how to do the debt ceiling hike. There's one thing that you could do. The Treasury has the constitutional authority to mint coins of any value. So Congress could simply pass a bill that says Treasury can mint a platinum coin worth trillions of dollars, the Treasury mints that coin and then deposit it in the U.S. bank account.
Yes.
Essentially. And
hashtag mint the coin.
Bingo, bango. It is done.
These are just all mechanisms that are very easy and logical when you lay them out, but for Washington, they sound insurmountable.
Yeah, I would say make a $10 trillion coin and put Donald Trump's face on it.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Then we'll finally get the Trump coin.
But here's the thing, is that they do not want, I think that there is a fear amongst of both parties, the establishment, the elite, whatever you want to call it, that if we reveal to the American public that because we have a sovereign currency, because we have the most used currency in the world, that we can actually forgive our own debt. Some debt is held by other countries. We don't need to even issue debt to spend. We literally create money. We have a fiat system. It is tied to nothing.
Yeah. The
only constraint is if too much money is printed and gets circulated, that it can be greater, the amount of money that we have can be greater than our economy's capacity to provide products and services that money commands.
And something tells me the United States doesn't have a problem in producing
We certainly don't have that. We certainly don't have that. We could theoretically, and there's a solution for that. That is to claw some of the money back through something we call taxation.
Right.
And so, and frankly, if you pay your taxes in dollars as it stands now, do you know what we do with that? We burn that money.
Right.
And then we just make new money. So we could do that. But I think there is a fear, because if that's the case, then you cannot have these kabuki theaters that we're having about the $3.5 trillion infrastructure bill.
When you make everything seem finite, you're able to heighten the stakes of these conversations for partisan ends.
Without a doubt. Very well said. That's exactly what's going on. And that and part of it is because you don't want to provide too much services to people because maybe they decide, hey, I don't want to work at your crappy job.
Yeah, there was a piece in these times about how the expansion of unemployment benefits, I mean, it liberated a lot of people. And there's people terrified in government because there needs to be a certain amount of insecurity, as has been said.
Alan Greenspan, I think, testified in front of Congress saying, I can't remember, this was about 30, 40 years ago, part of our job is to create a slight insecurity amongst the workforce.
AKA
so that
hunger and suffering in order to maintain.
That's the historical inheritance of the elite. You have to maintain that coercion.
And greater empowerment of people in terms of what they can do with their government is highly problematic. We have Kristen Sinema now meeting with her contributors. I think probably maybe at this moment, corporate contributors who are against the Biden infrastructure bill. We have the dentists lobby. We're lobbying against the expansion of Medicare for dental services. Here is a quote from Joe Manchin. There are good people that I represent, and we're just concerned about entitlement mentality versus rewarding mentality. I know that sounded awkward because I don't know what a rewarding mentality is, but about entitlement mentality, like you expect something because you're human versus you get a reward. Here's a cookie.
Maybe the rewarding mentality is that, like, the bosses are afraid that they're going to actually have to do something nice for their workers. Is that what it is?
I think it's something like there'll be pie in the sky when you die.
Exactly. And then taking care of those who really can't take care of themselves. That's all. But there's so much good stuff in there that we're still working diligently. He's talking about the infrastructure bill. Now, if you will recall, when the infrastructure bills were first introduced, Joe Biden had basically a broad proposal for about $4 to $5 trillion worth of infrastructure spending in two different tranches. Roughly $2.5 trillion for more physical infrastructure, $2.5 trillion for more social infrastructure. And he invited the Republicans to come down, negotiate with him. They, of course, had no interest. Kirsten Sinema and was it Rob Portman convened a bipartisan gang terrified of much of the social spending and the Green New Deal type of stuff and the support for like electric vehicles or, or the idea of expansion, negotiating drug prices, all the things that the American public wants. Very hard to come out against directly. Much better to start talking about vague things like spending and rewarding mentality versus entitlement mentality, whatever the F that means, from a guy who, incidentally, his daughter got a fake degree when he was governor of West Virginia, a fake business degree from the West Virginia University.
Was it a rewarding mentality when they had the West Virginia administrators try to make up those credits to cover for her? That's a rewarding mentality.
That was not an entitlement mentality. I mean, it was probably the third mentality, maybe.
I mean, it would be a rewarding mentality, but what are you rewarding her for outside of her parentage?
Rewarding her a free degree for being Manchin's daughter.
Yeah, she got the genetic lottery, or maybe not that in that way.
So this is what's going on, and the idea was, at the time the deal was made, we will not pass the skinny infrastructure bill, which has about $500 billion worth of actual new spending. The other $500 billion is sort of the perennial funding of infrastructure that happens. We will not pass that before we pass the reconciliation bill, the bigger $3.5 trillion package, because the way that conservative and moderate Democrats would sink the big bill is by passing the small one and say, you know what, we have had enough. So you needed to join these together, and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer pledged that that was the case. They pledged that that was the case. And yet, today, I should say last night, Nancy Pelosi announces we're going ahead with the skinny bill, and we're going to pass it on Thursday. And the question is, will progressives say, guess what, we're not going to vote? Nancy Pelosi has a 3-vote margin in the House. At least 4 Republicans have said they will vote for that. So that's a 7-vote margin she has. At least 22 by the count of the American Prospect and the Daily Poster and the Intercept, I think it is, 23. Progressives have announced they will vote against that bill. Jayapal says that number may be higher. Here she was on
Rachel Maddow's
show last night.
And right now, if the plan is still to do infrastructure, the infrastructure vote on Thursday, it sounds like the plan from you and the Progressive Caucus is still to vote that down unless there has been significant progress toward the Build Back Better bill, the reconciliation bill. It sounds like Thursday might still be more on the bubble than the headlines would make you believe.
I think that's right. Look, I think these are arbitrary dates. I think today was an arbitrary date that was set by a small group of people. I think what's important is, do we want to deliver on the Democratic agenda and the president's agenda? Negotiations are happening. I don't think the speaker will bring the vote to the floor the bill to the floor if she doesn't have the votes. And I think she is very clear that without the reconciliation bill voted on, we are going to have, it can't be a pinky promise, right, Rachel? It's got to be an actual bill that is written, the legislative text is written, the numbers are agreed to, everything is agreed to in order for us to be able to vote for the bipartisan bill. And I think she's really clear on that. So we're going to do everything we can. I've been having conversations over the weekend. Every single minute of every single day is taken up with this. And those conversations are really good. They're very productive. And I believe that we will continue to work. And let's see if we can get it done by Thursday. Great. I've always been surprised at what happens here in the last 24, 48, 72 hours when there's a deadline. But if we can't, then we'll keep working and we'll get it done as soon as we can.
That is her way of saying we're not going to vote for this. And we're also not going to accept like some broad framework that it's going to happen. Maybe, here's a hamburger on Tuesday type of situation. Now, Pelosi is claiming that they have joined the skinny infrastructure bill with the Surface Transportation Authority, which provides a lot of the other spending that's happening there. She claims that that bill, that Surface Transportation Authority will run out as of Thursday, the 30th.
Which is the deadline, the second deadline for this.
For the infrastructure bill. She can separate that out.
She can. And it's been done since 2003, according to the American Prospect, 23 times.
So 23 times feels like a lot of times during that time. And so she certainly can.
28 short-term extensions of the surface transportation authorization since 2003.
Yep. And so that can happen, and everybody knows it. And so this is going to be a big standoff. It's going to be interesting to see. She generally does not bring bills up to the floor unless she thinks she has the votes. And she's never been,
a high batting
she's
average.
never been wrong. But maybe she brings the votes to the floor. In that case, the progressives have to vote it down, and then she turns to the moderates, supposed. It's really, let's be honest, they're just corporatists. And says, are you really going to vote against the infrastructure bill when it comes back up in X amount of days? And
that's an optimistic view of what would happen if progressives vote it down and she actually brings it to the floor. That would be a blame progressives party.
It certainly would be, but let's be clear. By bringing that vote to the floor, Schumer and Pelosi have lied to their caucus. They have broken the deal. The deal is off.
Right. And the reason that deal was even in place was because the senators and representatives wanted to lock progressives out of the bipartisan infrastructure negotiation process, which they successfully did. And now they want their input met and potentially even want to sink, which is really their plan all along, the bigger package that progressives and a majority of the Democratic caucus negotiated and that the Biden administration wrapped his entire agenda into. So they wanted to lock the left out of this bipartisan negotiation with Republicans. And now they want to double back and say, wait. We want to hamstring and maybe kill your half of the deal, even though we are the majority party in the Senate and in the House, and we have the presidency. We're going to tank a majority of the agenda because we really only wanted to do one thing, which is make a deal with Republicans. And just like to talk a little bit more about this transportation reauthorization, if it expires, there's the potential for a lot of furloughs of workers. And this is yet another disingenuous tactic by Pelosi and Democratic leadership, frankly, where they're able to leverage, or they try to leverage progressives' humanity against them, because furloughs for these transportation workers, nobody wants that. But Pelosi's willing to go there and dangle that, at least on the surface, in order to kind of play a little bit more hardball and bring these two sides together. But one side is always asked to make massive concessions and the other is not.
Right. And I will say that there are, I am certainly not allergic to the concept of take a half a sandwich. Don't reject a half a sandwich because you're not getting a whole sandwich. But there are times where you have to reject a half a sandwich. In this instance, it's really closer to like an eighth of a sandwich. And that's it. Everyone knows the broader infrastructure bill is DOA if the bipartisan framework passes. As it stands now, you're already seeing Pelosi say that this number is going to be lower. And you're already seeing means testing for a lot of these programs. And means testing, let's be clear, is the most inefficient way to deliver services. If you are concerned, whether it's free community college, whether it's free college, whether it's expanded Medicare, whether it's daycare, free daycare, or free preschool, if you are concerned about billionaires accessing that stuff, well, if you're concerned about that, then I got some news. You're a little bit off your mind.
Yeah.
But if you're concerned about even people who make over $400,000, people who make over $200,000, people who make over $100,000, if you're concerned about wealthy people getting benefits from the government, instead of creating an apparatus that needs to be built, that needs to be operated to means test all of these different things, there is the most effective, simple mechanism that we have already developed in this country to make sure that people of means, wealthy people, the rich, are not getting government services when they don't need them. And that is called taxation. You tax them more.
What?
Yes, I know this is shocking, but the fact of the matter is, if you want to save money and you want to make sure that there is equitable distribution of government programs and benefits, and you don't want people who you think don't need it to get those benefits, you increase taxes. That is every other mechanism is both inefficient and just simply a way of obscuring those benefits for people. Period. End of story.
Right. But unfortunately for us, Sinema, as she's fundraising with a variety of interest groups today, I believe 5 separate ones who oppose the reconciliation bill. She has signaled that she is not in favor of raising the corporate tax rate from 21% or increasing the top marginal tax rate for the highest earners in this country. So, look at that. We have somebody who to kill any kind of marginal, tiny tax increase in the party that's supposed to be in favor of taxing the rich.
And we should say that the Arizona Democratic Party is set to have a vote of no confidence on Kyrsten Sinema. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that, at least amongst Democrats. I think you see that occasionally. Republicans have Republican state parties have voted no confidence against some of the Republican lawmakers who may have voted for impeachment of Donald Trump.
Right.
But you don't see this with a sitting senator from the Democrats. And I don't know if there's what the line is on trade sports, but or any other gambling platform, I don't even know if that still exists. But if you could short Kyrsten Sinema's career as a senator in some way, that I would do. Because unless she gets with a program, she is done. She has no future as a Republican in Arizona. And if she sinks this bill, she has no future as a Democrat senator in Arizona either. Joe Manchin, it's a Republican state. They voted for Donald Trump overwhelmingly over Joe Biden. Slightly different dynamic. But Kyrsten Sinema, I got to imagine that when she's having these meetings with these corporate donors.
Yeah, the New York Times reporting it this morning. I can find a little bit more information for everybody.
She's meeting the National Association of Wholesaler Distributors and Grocers, PAC, along with lobbyists for roofers and electrical contractors. A small business group called the S-Corps Political Action Committee. That is Donald Trump, because of his real estate dealings, S-corps is are entities that are set up by individuals, small business people, but really sort of like you could do it as a doctor, you could do it as a real estate, and it is what is known as a pass-through vehicle, and there is preferential treatment in the tax code after Donald Trump there. That's why that PAC is meeting there. Don't roll back the Donald Trump tax cuts. They meet today for 45 minutes. They write checks for between $1,000 and $5,800 to her. And I imagine she is also handing out her card and maybe looking for
some jobs.
Kind of office space you got there.
Exactly.
And this is after Ryan Grimm was also reporting that No Labels is privately backing Sinema's efforts on the infrastructure bill and her efforts to kill it. So she is a vessel for these corporate interests in a really brazen way that, like, I don't want to say it's Lieberman-esque, but maybe.
Well, Labels is a Joe Lieberman entity.
Yeah, and she seems to be just almost basking in this role and in the attention provided to her in this particular position because she wields the ultimate power here. And as the representative for those interests, she, I think, feels even more emboldened than someone like Manchin, who, as we say, has a bit of a different project happening.
Meanwhile, part of the problem is that the media has been covering this in a really horrific way.
You don't say.
Here is a clip of noted budget expert on the Sunday's Meet the Press. When you think of Republican or conservative noted budget expert or even budget commentator, do you think of Meghan McCain? Well, somebody at Meet the Press did. Here is Meghan McCain talking about the infrastructure bill. This is not a joke.
Meghan, I want you to play a reporter here for us because you may have the best sense of Kyrsten Sinema. I know you have a pretty good personal relationship. That's the frustration Democrats say. They don't know what Joe Manchin wants. They don't know what his bottom line is, and they don't know what her bottom line is. How would you describe it?
Well, I mean, politically in Arizona, I think that's why people like her so much. Just anecdotally, conservatives in my life really like her because, you know, she's...
Can you pause it? I'm sorry. I just, like, the opening, I want you to play reporter here. Here's an idea. On Meet the Press, you could have an actual reporter on.
That could happen.
Or she could just opine about her personal relationship with Kyrsten Sinema.
Which I'm sure they get deep into the weeds about. But she says anecdotally her conservative friends. Remember, this is a Democratic senator. Her numbers under the Democratic Party have tanked. And there is no way in a million years that Kyrsten Sinema will win a Republican primary. She could switch over to the Republican Party tomorrow. She could be an incumbent, and she's going to lose that primary. But continue.
Meghan, I want you to play a reporter here for us because you may have the best sense of Kyrsten Sinema. I know you have a pretty good personal relationship. That's the frustration Democrats say. They don't know what Joe Manchin wants. They don't know what his bottom line is, and they don't know what her bottom line is. How would you describe it?
Well, I mean, politically in Arizona, I think that's why people like her so much. Just anecdotally, conservatives in my life really like her because, you know, she's holding the line for conservatives in a lot of ways. The question I always have is, you know, for people like Joe Manchin, if it's not him, it's going to be a Republican. So this distaste and this, you know, outward hostility towards moderates in the Democratic Party surprises me. I also was shocked by seeing
pause it for 1 second.
Talking about sort of.
But I'm not sure if she's aware of how her father was treated by the Republican Party up in the months up to his death. This is a former presidential candidate who was basically used as a step ladder for their most recent president, who now controls that party.
Does anybody else remember imprisonment and says, I like prisoners who aren't captured or whatever.
I like my war heroes who are not captured.
Yeah.
But it's shocking to see hostility towards Joe Manchin. Continue.
Taste and this, outward hostility towards moderates in the Democratic Party surprises me. I also was shocked by seeing Senator Booker talking about sort of openly this distrust between progressives and moderates. How the Democratic Party ultimately threads the needle, I don't know. But I will say that President Biden ran on being a moderate, as you said. He ran and won with the help of independent, centrists, Trump-wary Republicans, and he is not governing as one. The Build Back Better agenda is the most progressive modern agenda of all time, up to $5 trillion, and it's not polling well. So I think I'm just confused as why they're doubling down on something that is cratering in the polls right now.
Eddie, I'm just curious.
Okay, now, what she just said there was a complete lie. A complete lie. Joe Biden ran exactly on this program. In fact, I think the one that he ran on was slightly bigger. It, in fact, polls very well in battleground states. Here, in fact, is a summary of what Meghan McCain just lied about. It is a tweet from Meet the Press. Pop this up. And this is problematic. It's one thing to have Meghan McCain on your panel show and not give anybody an opportunity to say, like, hey, you're lying. And you didn't do any reporting on Kristen Sinema. You just said that you have conservative friends who like her.
Well, she's playing reporter to give her
I understand, but she didn't even pretend to give a report about that.
Just anecdotally, her rich conservative friends that she grew up around her senator and presidential candidate father like Kristen Sinema. I am enlightened. Thank you.
But it's also,
I met the press.
Talked about Joe Manchin, and she doesn't know anybody who knows Joe Manchin. She Meet the Press tweeted out, Biden ran and won with the help of independent centrists. The Build Back Better agenda is the most progressive modern agenda of all time, up to $5 trillion, and it's not polling well. The fact is, it is polling well. Put up, do we have a clip of that poll?
So basically, they quoted her without any. They
used her quote to basically launder that talking point.
Yes,
as with an authority, because there's actually no evidence to
with an authority, and that authority being Meghan McCain.
Here are the majority of voters support the provisions of the Democrats in Congress proposed budget. Pretty overwhelming. He explicitly campaigned and won with those things.
On infrastructure, too. I mean, that concept, he was really... infrastructure polls of anything that the Democrats are going to try and pass here, in general, as a topic, very well.
And here's the thing. The bill is not $5 trillion.
Up to.
It is no.
That's what she said, though.
It's up to, but there is the one thing that we do know. The one thing that we do know is that the reconciliation, the resolution that was passed to create the vehicle for the reconciliation says $3.5 trillion is the maximum. The maximum. Now, I get what's a couple million between friends, maybe a couple of billion, maybe a couple $100 billion. But when you're off by $1.5 trillion, somebody should raise their hand and say, hey, you're off by $1.5 trillion.
Particularly when that's all they've been discussing is that number.
Yeah, and then they chose to advertise that figure in that tweet as a way to, as Matt said, launder that point.
And we should say also, this is over the course of 10 years.
Yes.
The military budget that they just approved a military budget that was $25 billion more than the Pentagon had asked for.
So let's frame it like this: $350 billion per year for 10 years on social infrastructure. Do we have a deal?
That is less than a half of what we spend on the military each year. The military over the course of those 10 years is closer to $8 trillion. And the problem is that your casual viewer will watch that and just assume, well, somebody would have said something if it wasn't true, right? Like, people just assume that the people who know what they're talking about will correct the people who don't know what they're talking about. And I don't know why they're laundering Meghan McCain. Like, The View was the high end of her journalistic enterprises over the course of the past 20 years.
You know what I'm fearful of? This is a trial balloon for a show.
Good.
Her and Chuck Todd.
I will, look.
All right.
There's a variety of Republicans who get certain contracts or if they spoke out against Trump in some way, and that could be what they're trying to do here.
That was pretty stunning. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to try and gather our composure at that last difficult thing that Emma just proposed. We'll be right back after this. So, folks, over the next couple of days, we will get a better sense of whether Pelosi feels that she has the votes to bring this skinny infrastructure bill onto the floor, and whether the progressives vote it down and we go back to the drawing board. We shall see, and then we will talk about it.
That's what we do on this program.
If you're watching us on Peacock, we say goodbye and see you tomorrow. And for those of you sticking around, we got a lot more show going. We got, we're going to be joined by Naomi. Is she here? All right. Just a reminder, you can support this program, help it thrive and survive. I don't know what happened there.
Thrive and then thrive.
Yes. Survive and then thrive. By becoming a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only get the free part of the show, but you get the fun half. Check out our Discord, majoritydiscord.com. We got over 4,000 members now. It is free. It's a great and growing community. Also, don't forget, justcoffee.coop. Fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority. You get 10% off. You got fantastic brews over there. So check it out. And Naomi.
Hello.
You've settled. Look at you're now like you're in a new blue, a little purple background.
It looks white. Are you in heaven?
Guys, I don't know if you know, I have a hookup there. Yeah. No, it's coming together. I still have to get more stuff and
new
design.
Place. Right.
Yeah. I have a new apartment.
Oh, nice.
Finally.
I got to do that soon. I'm dreading it already.
Is it just me, or does the color go from blue to purple depending on how close Naomi is from the camera?
Well, that's interesting.
I feel like
it does kind of, or it might be the light. Like I don't have my blackout curtains in here yet, and so it's kind of a hazy day. If people know in New York, so it might be like the clouds.
Are you sensitive to light? Yeah.
Yep, that's it. It's real fun. It's called aging.
I'm a bad sleeper myself.
Oh gosh.
I understand.
So we've got a really good week. I think everybody should tune into our show. If I can do some promos, I finally have it up on my phone. Aren't you proud of me for being prepared?
I was gonna say, like, what's going on? Is everything all right?
Well, I'm settled. I'm not running around filming people, in Puerto Rico. So we have Murtaza Hussain, who's going to be on to talk about, actually tomorrow is all about the cost of war. So he's got a great article, over 2 decades, U.S. global war and terror. has taken nearly 1 million lives and caused $8 trillion. And then Luke Savage is back to talk more about that because, aside from Afghanistan, and the war on terror, just militarization in general is $21 trillion since 9/11. So that is the topic tomorrow. And then Jordan Zacher and Napoleon DeLegend are going to be on for the panel. So it should be really good.
Awesome.
And nice. Fridays, guys, I just want to do a little promo. We have this thing called Femme Fridays that does really well. And I urge the entire MR audience, you, especially if you're a guy, to tune in. We have really deep and sometimes tricky conversations about issues that I don't think are necessarily always put out on left YouTube spaces, because it's all women and all types of voices from women. And we have debates, and we had a really big one on sex workers that got a lot of attention and opened my mind up to a lot of things. So I definitely recommend it. Go to youtube.com/The Key Show. Same with Twitch.
No, Twitch is
sorry.
.tv.
I almost got it. Come on.
_ Nomiki _ show.
Just put it in the search bar. Do what people do. Search.
All right, fair enough.
Easier, no?
Yes.
Matt, how do we find something from the Matt Leckian media universe?
Well,
something.
That's an interesting question. But on Wednesday, tomorrow night, you'll be able to find an interview with Adrian Martinez and Sam Goodman of La Ruta del Clima of Costa Rica. And we're going to be talking about a number of things, mainly about how we can use democracy to address climate change. And we'll talk about COP26, also be talking about climate change policy particular to Costa Rica and Peru. So check that out Wednesday. I'm very excited about that conversation. Patreon.com/leftreckoning.
Nice.
All right, folks. See you in the fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
And the alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it to my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflakes has what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Denner.
Well, the problem with those is they're 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males,
psych, fuck them.
Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keep it at 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on, fuck them. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy.
I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black alpha males are black Africans are back. Come on. Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
Back.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. It is the Majority Report. Here with Emma Vigland and Nomiki Konst and Matt Leck. And then deep in the recesses is that other guy whose name we're not going to give up for reasons that we've discussed. Bradley's here.
He's on the witness protection.
He's in the witness protection right now.
And in the box, obviously.
In the box. I just want to do an update. Nomi, you weren't here yesterday, but we had a guy call in who is a regular listener of the show. He said that he'd been super careful about COVID. Did have somebody over who he thought was going to be COVID safe. It sounds like they, hung out for an extended period of time. And he caught COVID. He did not get vaccinated. He had decided that he didn't want to get vaccinated. He had some questions about it and and still felt like that. So, and my heart goes out to the guy. He lost 9 pounds in 3 days. And he sounded like he was relatively young. I don't know exactly how old he was, but my guess would have been in the 30s.
He said it was horrible.
Horrible.
And
COVID, he still seems to be recovering, but he emailed and wanted to just give a little bit of information, not in any way justifying his decision about vaccination. I think to a certain extent, he conceded in the email some of what Emma was saying afterwards, that there was a certain amount of anxiety that is distinct from anxiety of the vaccination that he deals with, that the vaccination sort of rolled into.
That's my sense, and there's people in my life who deal with that, and I totally get it and sympathize.
He said, "Thank you for taking my call and not yelling at me too much." And it goes without saying, I'm foggy at the moment and very congested, but did my best for the phone call. Another thing I wanted to mention was access to monoclonal antibodies. This is info that could help people. They are out there in cities all over the country. They're kind of hiding them, though. I've seen similar reports.
Yeah.
That you need to specifically ask for them, or you need to be, even though that they're readily available.
Or be Joe Rogan, right? And just have it as a part of your cocktail.
I would suggest to anyone that gets diagnosed with COVID to immediately Google monoclonal antibody treatment in their area. Call your local hospitals, ask if they have monoclonal antibody infusion center or hotline. Chances are they will leave a message. Could take 24 to 48 hours response, so better to do it immediately and hope you don't need them, or at least have the info ready if you start to think you need them. People should know they will get symptoms reminiscent of intense immune response for 12 to 18 hours because they're having an intense immune response. My temperature in that time reached between 103.2 and 103.5. People can qualify without a doctor referral. Despite being in good shape, I qualified because my BMI is 20 or above. But there are other reasons besides comorbidities that will qualify someone. Point being, they want to give them to you. You just need to qualify. Unfortunately, it's possible I experienced severe side effects. He thinks he reported to the FDA, and they said, we've never heard anything like that. But it says they reduced the risk of hospitalization by almost 3/4. And he's saying, not saying this to debate the vaccine. If I effed up, then I effed up. But hopefully I'll be okay, and I'm really hoping I'll be okay. So the point being, it is a good piece of advice that if you get COVID, to seek out the monoclonal antibodies.
If you get COVID and you're vaccinated, though, is it the same? Because the symptoms are much less severe when you're vaccinated and you get COVID.
I think it is the case that if you're vaccinated, you're going to be in much better shape. But if you have like a particular comorbidity, I guess, and you're vaccinated, listen, it never hurts to seek this stuff out and get to the point where you get in line or you try and find out where this is. But the bottom line is everyone who doesn't have I don't even know what the specific instances in which one would not get a vaccine. But if you've gotten vaccines in the past, you should get this vaccine. I mean, I don't know how much more evidence you need.
Did you guys see that was it Dave Rubin who did that tweet, was like, what if we came up with some sort of way to inject a little bit of COVID in everybody just to get their immunity used to COVID?
I didn't see that, but
that's classic.
That's
Dave
perfect.
Rubin.
Yeah,
that really is amazing. I have this idea. What if we were to put cards on something that would just roll forward, almost like the shape of it? Like we put 2, maybe 4.
Back to back.
Yeah.
And maybe connect them so that they're all going at the same pace.
It's really amazing that this guy gets up and is able to like brush his teeth and tie his shoes every day.
Well, he invented the toothbrush, obviously. He calls it the brush tooth.
Yes.
The brush tooth.
What
it's
if
a thing.
You had a little stick and you put some just pointy
Well, this
things.
is the way I discovered it. I was in CVS. I was walking down the aisle and I saw these things that were like plastic with bristles. And I took a moment. I'm like, what if I use this to brush my teeth? And I did, and they work. And I've called it the brush tooth. Awesome. And I'm going to find out what they're used for.
You know what his entire existence is? It's that thing where you repeat something that you saw beforehand, but you don't realize that you saw it before. And then you're like, damn it, like, yeah, I know why I was thinking of that, but he has no awareness that that's how his brain functions. Like, in that constant state.
There should be a segment called like Dave Rubin's Invention of the Week.
Right. Right, exactly. It's just something very basic.
Here is Republican gubernatorial. You guys good? Listen, what's this? Here is Republican gubernatorial candidate Scott Jensen, who spoke over the weekend, was delivering remarks regarding ivermectin. There has been such an enormous amount of data and proof that ivermectin is ineffective in treating COVID.
Yesterday, New Mexico reported 2 deaths from misuse of ivermectin.
There's been a lot of poison control calls dealing with ivermectin. Some of these stories are a little bit overblown, but what is clear is it is not helpful for you to take this if you are trying to get rid of COVID. If you have parasites, it's conceivable that a doctor may prescribe a off-label usage of ivermectin. But here is a Republican gubernatorial candidate running on this dynamic with ivermectin.
But if someone wants to sort of demean or diminish ivermectin, which they do on social media, I noticed, if someone wants to say, well, it's just a horse dewormer, well, actually, it's not. It's a human dewormer, too. And if you think that's something to sneeze at, go get some worms and have them creep out of your anus at night, and you might wish you had some ivermectin.
Right.
There's a lot of you folks in here that don't remember the Scotch tape test. I remember it. I remember being about 5 years old, and I remember Mom laying me on my belly, going to bed at night, and she'd put a piece of Scotch tape, double it around, stick it by my anus, and said, we'll check it in the morning. And if we had worms on it, I had pinworms, and then I got treated. It's not so bad.
What's stunning about this?
And now I'm anal retentive.
What's stunning about this is like,
the point is that, like, that's for parasites.
It's for parasites. Like, he knows what it's like. COVID is not a worm that crawls out of your ass. But it's also, just think about the concept of a political party, of an ideology, which is coalescing around the defense of a deworming medicine in the midst of a pandemic that deals with a virus. This is just so bizarre. The country is so effed up that it is just it's insanity. It's insanity.
Like, you didn't get it from eating bad sushi. It's not.
Well, where is sushi from?
Oh, yes.
Asia, Japan, right next door to China.
Right next door.
Right next door.
You could swim there.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's really just amazing that it has come to this.
Also, I love how he's telling the anecdote about your mom scotch taping your anus. It's so relatable.
Not the greatest anecdote to bust out on the stump, I don't think.
You want to be known for the guy as the guy.
Imagining, I don't know if it makes me want to vote for a guy when I'm imagining his mother putting scotch tape on his anus. There's a guy I want in charge of.
Yeah, but my point also is that this isn't as relatable as he thinks. Also, he must have been a really filthy child. You're that frequently getting parasites that your mom has to scotch tape your ass every night.
Maybe you're working on a farm. It's not that part to me, honestly.
He's a dirty man.
Not that crazy. It's just crazy to me that that's part of his sales pitch to become governor is I'm going to protect the honor of a deworming medicine. Well, what? What?
At this point, it's just a hashtag. It's just a way for them to soak up attention from other, conspiracy.
I know, but it's don't you stop and realize and think hey, wait, what am I doing? Even if I was a drug salesman,
yeah,
and sold ivermectin, and was out there defending the honor of ivermectin to applause from an audience, I'd be I live a weird life.
Yeah.
That is weird. But the idea that I'm a gubernatorial candidate defending the honor of ivermectin that is not have anything really to do with COVID is just sort of bizarre to me.
Has Trump commented on it yet? Has he said if he's taken it or not? I know this sounds ridiculous that I should, but really, has anybody asked him, have you taken it? Would you take it?
No, I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if he does comment on it. But what's the name of this gubernatorial candidate? Shoot, I don't have the sheet up.
Scott Jensen.
Scott Jensen. Maybe he can turn it into some sort of positive association for his campaign, right? Worms crawled out of my ass, but won't crawl out of my ass.
Right, exactly.
Tax increases.
Do you remember who was it? Sharon, who's the one in Iowa who was milking the cow?
to Teresa Green. What'd you say, Bradley? Teresa Greenfield.
Was that who it was? I thought it was. Oh my God.
Dang. Oh, Joni Ernst.
Joni Ernst, yes.
She was about killing a pig or something like that.
She was milking the cow. She's this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Joni Ernst did something with a farm animal.
Walrus on the IM says that was not Dave Rubin about the vaccine. It was Jack Posobiec.
Oh, God, I'm so sorry, guys.
It
sounded like it was Dave Rubin.
Jack. Calling from a 217 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Nick from Phoenix, Arizona.
Nick from Phoenix, Arizona. What's on your mind?
Hey guys, first time, long time. I know you guys were talking about Kyrsten Sinema earlier, and I just wanted to comment really quickly just how blitzed we're getting, in Arizona right now with pro Sinema materials. They're doing 30-second ads to thank Kyrsten Sinema for leading the charge on the infrastructure bill.
That's Koch money.
And
the Koch brothers are doing that, or the Koch brother.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly. It just feels really astroturfed, right? I mean, just this morning, I got this huge mailer from her, or the Koch brothers or whoever, and the first line on it just says creating jobs, upgrading roads and bridges, and water systems, and just the usual, just the usual stuff that you'd expect from her. But what I thought was interesting in the mailer is when you open it up, it's the messaging that she's really going for is she says, infrastructure represents more than pipes and pavement. it represents opportunities for Arizona families and all this stuff. And so it's like, you know, of course it's like stuff that she doesn't really believe in, but she seems like she's trying to kind of tack left with that stuff, even though we know obviously she doesn't care about that stuff, right? So I don't know if this is useful at all, but
it is. No.
It's good to know.
It's fascinating because she needs to muddy the waters, because you know, like these votes, and appreciate the phone call. And Nomi, you know Arizona a bit. I mean, these votes are just indefensible, and the Democratic Party is in Arizona is about to have a vote of no confidence, but Arizonans are being blitzed with this thing that sounds like she's like voting for exactly what is in the bill.
But I thought Meghan McCain said that Biden was being supported for other reasons. So maybe they shouldn't have to lie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Meghan McCain probably hasn't been back there in a while, but she's still in touch with her conservative friends. And I mean, this is what's so effed up about our system right now, is that like she's going to obscure what she's actually doing. And
this is classic. This isn't like anything new. I mean, it's always one thing in Washington, you go home. I mean, it's like the Republicans who ran against Obamacare and then supported it at home.
But isn't this where Joe Biden needs to get on a plane, or Kamala Harris needs to get on a plane and suck up the oxygen in Arizona for a day or two?
Do local TV like they did with
local TV
with the
and go there. We encourage Kristen Sinema to sign to vote for this bill, right?
That's the problem here, right? It's not that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris aren't smart enough to do that, or don't, you know, that they're afraid of Sinema and Manchin. I really don't think so. I just think that they're really struggling with which side they want to be on in this fight. And ultimately, I think progressives need to stop just targeting Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin and start targeting Kamala Harris and Joe Biden to flex their muscles the way that Donald Trump does. We've been saying this, you know, for a year at this point. But, you know, Donald Trump, when he wants to pressure a Republican to do something, he gets on a plane, he goes there and he does a rally. And that's what we got to do. I mean, that's what like the Democrats who, you know, Nancy Pelosi, get your Northern California, followers to call. I mean, you know, they'd be happy to make phone calls on her behalf to call Arizonans. And I mean, they could do a robocall. I mean, there's so many things the Democratic Party could do to apply pressure. They could do it in a second. It would cost no money.
Well, Joe Biden invited them to the White House today, and so that's got to hurt. And
I love reading these anecdotes that maybe Politico or Punch will put out, where they talk about what Biden served to them. He gave them all chocolate chip cookies, I saw the other day. Oh, well,
pretty good chocolate chip cookies at the White House, but
yeah, that's gonna do it.
I guess we're gonna see. I mean, it really, you know. What is your sense of what's going to happen on Thursday?
I have no idea.
All right.
I feel like seriously, I wish I had more. I just feel like we're in this land of like, the typical rules don't apply. Like if this were Johnson, it just wouldn't, business wouldn't run this way. I just feel it's not that our politicians are afraid. They're just conditioned, and they're not conditioned for this crisis. I don't know. I mean, what's your take, guys?
I think that's true. I think that we're just looking at incompetence on some level. They're just not up to the task. And, you know, if Nancy Pelosi was determined to have this vote, Thursday, I don't think that this is the way that she would have gone about it. I mean, I think she is just like literally, and I think Schumer's in the same boat, and I think Joe Biden's in the same boat. They're in a room. Someone turned off all the lights, and there's no light coming through it, and they're just literally bouncing around. And I would not be surprised if, 12 hours from now, the plan changes. The only thing I think that Pelosi can do at this point, I think the progressives need to vote this bill down. She needs to put it on the floor. It gets voted down. She has the ability to bring it back up later, right? And just turn to Gottheimer and the crew and say, I promised you a vote. There's the vote. Sorry, guys. And what are you going to do? She's
not going to bring it up for a vote that's going to fail.
I mean, I think she'll walk over to them and say, this is going to fail. I mean, you're going to be done. You're going to be toast. And But really, this is going to come down to Jayapal needs to hold tight. She needs to be able to maintain at least 15 to 20, I think, Democrats who are committed to voting against, and that has to happen.
And
Because if it
everything she
doesn't,
said so
it's all
far,
done.
everything she said so far, I appreciate. It's just that once it comes down to it on Thursday, it's going to be a lot tougher.
Here's the thing. If they don't deliver at least 20 votes to crash this bill, it is over.
Over.
They're done. They are done as a political entity. You know, Gottheimer sort of receded a little bit, and maybe they get that vote, and so he can at least claim that they held the vote or something like that. But if at this point this bill passes without a reconciliation, and now maybe they come in and go, we have a framework and this and that, but you know, we played that clip of Jayapal on Rachel Maddow, and she said specifically, you know, this isn't a pinky promise thing. We need to have an actual bill. But we'll see. We'll see. Calling from a 513 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Joe from Dayton, Ohio.
Joe from Dayton, Ohio. What's on your mind?
Well, first thing, Emma, I think Joni Ernst became famous for castrating pigs.
Yep.
I think that was the thing.
That is what it
So
is.
thanks for making me remember that, by the way.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
But the ad, she was milking them. She was milking cows. Remember that?
I think I just remember the castration point.
We got to find the video.
Well,
it was like the craziest political ad I think I've seen since I'm not a witch.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. The reason I called, and I'm sorry I missed yesterday's show. I don't know if you talked about it, but I saw you tweet about it over the weekend, Sam. And that's with Republicans dying more than Democrats. Are we going to see that, like in the elections coming up, and in the coming years in Florida and Georgia? Is it enough people? I hate to sound like this, but is it enough people dying to put the vote?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think I just read off, and I appreciate the phone call. We just read that report that shows in counties where Donald Trump won 70% or more of the vote, the rate of death is 47 people out of I think it's 100,000. And in counties where Joe Biden won 68% or more of the vote, it's 10. So I don't think you're looking at, I think where you're seeing that biggest discrepancy are in areas where Republicans are never going to lose.
Yeah.
And I mean,
but if you were to, okay, so that's for COVID alone. Now add in just demographics, older Republicans dying of other diseases, and just, generally speaking, you have two largest generations in history, baby boomers and millennials. And millennials obviously are more democratic and are much older now than the younger ones, Gen Z. So isn't there just automatic, like it's just going to happen anyways at a more rapid pace? Like as millennials start to vote more and more boomers die off and tending to be more conservative. Do you see what I'm saying? Like it's not just COVID related.
No, I think that's just the general way that it's going to go. But I mean, as you start to disenfranchise people, that's the plan. I just don't think that COVID itself is going to, have that big of an effect. I think. I don't know. That's my guess.
I mean, listen, like the presidential election came down to how many votes? Like 30,000, something like that? In swing states, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Some small number. Call from an 814 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello?
Hello?
Oh, hi. This is Margaret from Pennsylvania.
Margaret from Pennsylvania. What's on your mind?
Well, I called a while ago about the National Infrastructure Bank Coalition. I don't know if you remember, but we're still going strong. And just recently wrote an op-ed which was published in a bunch of newspapers in New York State, and we're sending them out in Pennsylvania right now. But we're active in 20 states. And the whole point of the infrastructure bank is to sort of break this impasse. If you establish the bank, you wouldn't need to raise taxes and it wouldn't increase the deficit. And so it has potential, I think, for bipartisan support, maybe.
But here's the thing. I think. I mean, I listen. I think it's a good idea, but as a political matter, all of that stuff is just simply. It's not their issue. It is more about Joe Manchin really basically, mentioned the issue up front. He was much more explicit about it, and the issue for Joe Manchin was this. They're good people that I represent, and we're just concerned about entitlement mentality versus rewarding mentality. And then taking care of those who can't take care of themselves. I mean, the bottom line is, when they talk about deficit and taxes and this and that, they are worried about taxes. They don't want taxes to go up. But it is a way of basically saying, we also don't want spending. We don't want government enriching the lives of your average person, because that's going to make things more difficult on the employer side.
Right. Yeah, I get that. But I feel like this is something that is positive. It's constructive. It's something that people can unite behind. And I really think it's worth pursuing. I know that the politics, it's just, I have to say, one of the people I just talked about this with was David Dayen. You turned me on to David Dayen a while ago, and I get the American Prospect, and he's been having these pros in politics Zoom meetings with readers, our patrons. And so I was actually able to talk to him about this issue, and he's been covering the infrastructure bill, inch by inch. And he kind of had the same sense that, it's never going to work, it's not worth talking about. And I get that, but I also see, this tremendous grassroots movement of people who are so enthusiastic. And I mean, in Pennsylvania, we've talked to, oh my goodness, maybe 40, 50 legislators, and they're all on board. They've signed this op-ed. They would like to see this move forward. So I was really hoping that I could, mention it again and encourage people to go to our website, which is nibcoalition.com, and just check it out. We have a macroeconomist on board.
Okay,
we have an engineer on board.
NIB, what is it?
NIB, as in National Infrastructure Bank.
NIB dot.
No dot. Just nibcoalition.com.
Okay, nibcoalition.com. All right, well, I appreciate the call. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good idea. I just think that in terms of its political power at this moment, I got to say it's a little bit, I just don't think I don't think that's actually what they're really concerned about.
I think I was reading Tuz's book, and I think this was floated during the Obama administration, and it wasn't pursued for, they didn't have the political will.
Statistical Nutjob says, your knowledge of statistics is laughable. One of the reasons why death rate is high in Trump states and counties, because there are more older people there. Where Biden won, age demographic is different, and hence 1/4 the death rate out of 10,000. If you think that the difference between the age demographics in Biden counties and Trump counties is 4.5 times different, I think you're in for it. I think the idea that you wouldn't explain that based upon vaccination rates and just simply behavior is I don't know what to tell you. I mean, and if you are so convinced, show me that.
Well, in fact, the New York Times today showed it. They showed just straight up,
well, he's saying that's what I cited. Yeah. He's claiming that's a function because there's older people, that many more older people in Trump counties.
I'm on Pew now
Biden
because I don't even think that that's true.
In fact, Biden did quite well, relatively speaking, with older cohort. In fact, I think we've talked about this in the past, or at the very least, one of the reasons why Medicaid expansion not expanding the age group, but why Medicaid expansion of services resonated so much with Democrats is because of those figures that showed Joe Biden did much better with older folks. And so you're actually giving a benefit to that cohort of people who voted.
Trump beat out Biden by 4 percentage points with 65 and older, but that's a lot smaller than it has been, I think, traditionally.
Well, this guy's arguing that counties where Donald Trump won by 70% of the vote were like dramatically, I mean, you got to be dramatically older. Have 4.5 times more, I guess, people over the age of 65 or 75. I don't know what he's defining that, but that's, but it may be one of the reasons, but it is not the driving
And also,
factor.
something like 89% of people or over 80% of people 65 and older are vaccinated.
Yeah. Now, there's a lot more breakthrough cases, and the older you get, your chances of dying are much higher. But there's just not that type of disparity.
But it also it proves the point, though. So even if there are more old people and they're not getting vaccinated and they're dying, that proves the point right there.
No, the argument that this guy's making is that you're starting already with a population that is going to have a higher death rate regardless of what you do, because of that age disparity. But that just there is no, that is not the case.
So overwhelming that it just doesn't
it's just
account
not the
for
case.
that.
Yeah.
No, but even listen, I'm sorry, just to vaccinated older people, I'm sorry, they're just not dying at that. I mean, I don't even know what the rate is. It's probably below 1% at this point. Not sure.
I can tell you this, that the people who are dying are unvaccinated, but the vaccinated people who are dying are older folks.
But it's not, is it of COVID or is it of other factors? I mean, I know one person who was in his 50s who died, but he had a reaction to the vaccine.
COVID. It's COVID.
COVID, yeah.
Anita Dump. Oh, gosh. At this point, I expect neither the bipartisan bill or the reconciliation bill will pass. However, this might be a good thing, as it would show the large progressive caucus can actually affect legislation.
That one was funny.
Josh from Tucson. I have a small bone to pick with Jack on the AM Quickie. Today's Some Number segment. 22,300 miles above the Earth is making it sound like being in a higher orbit has nothing to do with what a satellite can see. It is actually the height in order to be in geostationary orbit. This allows the satellite to orbit the Earth at the same speed as Earth's rotation so that the satellite can stay over a certain spot over the planet. Interesting. Evan Flo. My mom should have known better than to tell me to clean my room. They knew it would make me not want to, so it's really their fault. My room is a mess.
I unironically feel this way about how my parents didn't let me drink soda growing up, and now I really like it.
Interesting.
Same with MTV.
Sam Seder. The Republicans have become a Sacha Baron Cohen show. Dixiecrat. I feel like with all this a shaving backstory, we might have to have a shaving live stream in our future. Assworm is my new band's name. Sorry, kind of feels like that dude was luring those worms up his butt. Like, how many times is that an accident? Have you read my email? Did Sam just reveal his realm in music taste? Sam's hanging Chad. Guy who tried to assassinate a president, released. Guy who committed war crimes in Iraq, pardoned. People of color that sold or did drugs, lock him up and throw away the key. If John Hinckley Jr. was black or Muslim, do you think he would be released? No way. Rewarding mentality means when your dad is governor, you're rewarded with a fake degree from... Yes, we did that. Chris from Taiwan. Why aren't government shutdowns even a thing? Couldn't Congress just pass a law saying that in the event of no budget on time, all agencies just continue to operate at previous levels until a budget is passed?
Well, that would remove the leverage that every party has when they're in power. So it's like one of those things that they're not going to...
Left-hand stranger.
Or the minority party, right, in this instance.
I wonder which progressive news, if any, AOC and Ilhan and the squad watch. Do y'all ever wonder if they're listening to y'all or one of our close talk show allies? I mean, I would imagine they don't spend a lot of time watching.
No, I mean, I know one or two monitor, staffers or whatever. I'm not.
Oh, yeah.
Not gonna say.
Totally. The staff is totally monitoring the shows. I mean, what I love is like when you walk into all these, offices in DC, they always have either they have the closed circuit TV or they have like C-SPAN or something. I would love to see like the Majority Report in their like lobbies of their offices. Be kind of cool.
That would be fun.
Cool.
Ethan of H3H, he said he watches y'all and Hassan's show sometimes. Yes, Ethan has told me that. That's pretty neat. Have you seen Ethan's new set with Hassan? They're doing a duo show. Pretty neat stuff. Yes, I'm excited for that, actually. I think that's going to be very helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
It'd be nice to have like a 300-pound gorilla. And
Ethan has great instincts about this stuff, too, so.
Emma, what do you think of the Cowboys last night? That was a rare event.
I didn't watch. That's a rarity for me, but I don't think people understand the depth of my football-related depression at the moment.
Train Boy, the $1 trillion coin should be an NFT. A square. John from San Antonio, thanks for the remembrance of EJ at Negan's Cat. Sam, rewards is a term used in corporate as in talent and rewards versus skill set, work, labor, and wages or pay. So Manchin is also speaking the language of his overseers. Do you think Pelosi Schumer is trying to defang Progressive Caucus with this last move? Yeah, this is going to be a defining moment for the Progressive Caucus. It is hard to imagine there's a reason for it if they don't hold the line here. Right? I mean, where are you on that, Nomi?
But there's this, they always have a trick up their back. I don't know. I'm a trick up their sleeve, I think the Progressive.
Sorry.
I was like, what's the exactly with the Scotch tape on the ass?
There's the trick up your bag. All right, continue. Yikes.
No, I was just looking at Ilhan Omar's tweets, for instance. I'm like scrolling through to see what the latest is in their lead. And they're going really hard. And I think that's fantastic. But even the progressives need to expand. I mean, there's so many different Democrats, which they have been doing, to be fair, who like a Tim Ryan, for instance. Like Tim Ryan, it's not going to be a great look, especially since he's running, for higher office, for him to not support the progressives in this case. It's a very popular, like heartland America kind of bill. And I think this is a beautiful opportunity for progressives to really expand their universe and have normie Democrats, in heartland carry it for them, which pressures, the Gottheimers and the Swazis to behave themselves.
Right. The messaging.
I don't know if that's happening enough.
I agree with it. Messaging should be like, we're supportive of President Biden's agenda. And we all made a deal to make sure that agenda came before the Republican-sponsored one. And we're going to support, our Democratic president. And, and then let Nancy Pelosi come out and try and explain it. I mean, honestly, I think, it wouldn't be hard. Pelosi's out there alone doing this. And it's not like they've built any type of, mechanism. This is a message that has been pounded for weeks, if not months, in terms of dual track. And so they should press the advantage they have, that this has been the state of play for months. And Pelosi's trying to change it with 2 days. And there's just not a lot of opportunity for her to do that, seems to me.
Well, and I think this actually highlights a dilemma on the left that we have as a movement sometimes kind of isolated ourselves, and we've been at war with the centrists for so long that sometimes we don't realize that once we're in power, we actually have to build these coalitions rather than constantly burn things down, because we need the votes. I mean, in this situation in particular, this is a beautiful moment for us to expand our power as a movement with, the Progressive Caucus, and use that as leverage against the bad Democrats. I think, okay, it's Biden's bill, but I don't know if that's popular in Ohio. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just talking about what this bill brings to the people of Ohio, Republicans, centrists, not, and then say, big business is sponsoring these other people to block this bill. Who are those big business people? They're billionaires, the Koch brothers. I think it has to be more populist-y and just ignore the fact that it's the Progressive Caucus that's driving this, or really fighting for it with Nancy Pelosi. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's true. I just don't know that's actually the case. But maybe, you push it. I think for a guy for a guy like Tim Ryan, I think, like, I'm supporting President Biden's agenda. The polling is sort of caved in the past, like, couple, maybe months, and then maybe that's part of the problem with, like, independents.
Also, just because, like, the process has seemed so elongated that people are just kind of like, well, it's divisive.
I just think it's very simple. Bringing home a bacon. That's it. Politics is all about local bringing home bacon. And I don't think it's about Biden. I don't think it's about the progressives. I think that's Twitter speak. I think that's Beltway speak. I think that, if you want a moment to get this, you have to get other folks on board to give their messaging to their district, pretending that, like, all these other games aren't even existing. And that leverages the internal fight, which is what's happening with Josh Gottheimer.
It sort of feels like we're at the point where it's like these people are so sequestered in Washington right now that they're really listening more to Meet the Press than they are to getting feedback from their people. And so, like, on one hand, Kristen Sinema is having the Koch brothers basically run interference for her locally by saying that she's actually, like, except for the fact that she's not voting for the infrastructure bill, it sounds like she is. Like, it sounds like she's.
That's the point, though. They get it. They get it.
But that's because she needs defense in her district at this point. And I don't know that this is as active in the districts as it is in Washington, where people are just trying to get a sense of what's going on. I mean, maybe there's both things that need to happen, but it's hard to get a sense that there's an opportunity with 2 days left to go in and push certain constituencies. I mean, that's.
Well, actually, this is a great moment where we see how the Democrats once again are not doing their job of organizing properly. It's one thing in elections not to organize properly, but it's another thing when you're trying to win these fights. They're won locally. Look what the Koch brothers are doing. I mean, I get it's defense, but, like, they invest locally. They get their messaging out there. And you want to pressure a lawmaker to do something, or vice versa, or have, Tim Ryan, I use him as an example because he's running for higher office and maybe Biden isn't the winning message, but it sure is going to look good when, there's jobs being brought in to rebuild those roads and those bridges in Ohio, where, that budget has been zapped, by Republicans. It's a local conversation. It's what Tom Suozzi's doing right now. Tom Suozzi, say what you will about him, but he's being I'm getting his emails. Like, he's being very sophisticated how he's messaging to his district, which is Long Island and a little part of Queens. So
let's go to the phone. 954 area code 954. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Tammy.
Yes.
Michael from Miami.
Michael from Miami. Long time no hear from Michael from Miami.
It's a treat to get everybody on there. Nice to talk to everybody there. Emma, congratulations on your picks. You're a star. You should do a podcast, I'm telling you.
Which picks?
Well, NFL picks, collegiate analysis. You're sharp. You're very, very good.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, I'm not patronizing. You're very good.
No, I appreciate it. I've had a horrible betting weekend, so I needed I needed that pep talk to get back in the game for this week.
Hey, you got my boy Kadarius Toney up there. You get him on the field. He can make some plays for you if he ever gets off the DL. Anyway,
yeah, if he gets off the schneid, he's the man. Yeah, I love him.
Okay, Naomi, we don't really talk, but I'm the Florida guy who has to live under the guise of Ron DeSantis and the incompetence of the Democratic Party down here. Oh, it's so much fun. Everything you talked about just now is actually a perfect distillation of why Marco Rubio is going to win this election. I mean, as much as we like to think that an African-American woman could be able to win a statewide election, I've told you guys this before, it's not going to happen because she's not doing what Naomi just suggested. She's not localizing the race. She's trying to make Marco Rubio the issue, and unfortunately that's not going to fly. He's got too much national perspective and too much of a national image to get around. She's got to come after him locally. And unfortunately down here, the economy's doing okay thanks to the COVID relief money that's improperly been, dispersed in places it shouldn't be. DeSantis continues to be slightly above water, so he doesn't really have coattails, but by the same token, he's not an anchor. And for the first time in the state's history, we have more registered Republicans than registered Democrats. Yay, us. And they're losing the Hispanic vote big time. They cannot figure out how to reach them. So it's maddening beyond belief to live here. And I live in Dade County, Broward County, and extremely frustrating. Like I said, it's like being behind the Iron Curtain, and it's you know.
And if I can just say one thing, with the success of the $15 minimum wage, it just shows you what good organizing does on the message in Florida for an overwhelming win. But if you're nationalizing a race, because to be fair, I understand why she's doing it that way to raise money nationally, but you have to simultaneously get those. I mean, Nina Turner's race is a perfect example, right? Like you got to have both things. The money coming in is fantastic, but you also have to have the right type of local organizing. And I think we talk about that as progressives a lot. I don't think we're doing it a lot.
Sam mentioned earlier that Florida turns out to be one of the places that I think some guy called and said that COVID was going to kill off the Republican base. I'm not going to go into that. That's too morbid to think about. But here's the problem. In my state, okay, all the old racists, all the old codgers who didn't want to pay taxes for schools, all those people you couldn't stand who moved away, guess where they came? Yeah, right. They didn't go to Texas. Right. They didn't go to Georgia. And they're not going to North Carolina, Virginia. No, they're coming to us. So every time you have one of those old codgers sit there and die, they're replaced by two others who come from the Northeast who just retired and will be around for another 20 years, have money, and have time on their hands. So it's a horrible combination. So having said that, I still think a competent Democratic, and I hate to say this is going to be unpopular, a white male candidate would appeal to the major part of the state, and as long as the name is not Charlie Crist, and be able to do something, even with a progressive agenda, I think it would be popular. But they just can't get their act together. They are constitutionally incompetent. It's almost laughable and depressing.
I don't know about the
I've heard Florida Democratic Party is a disaster.
It's not a disaster. They had investigations, they had corruption scandals, sex scandals. I mean, it's like, totally incompetent. But it shouldn't be incompetent because the money's there.
Yeah, she's going to try to run against DeSantis. She's not going to win, but she actually made a nice point in terms of being able to highlight the dysfunction that goes on down here. The fiefdoms, the donor class that sits there, and the consultancy class that just continues to pour money into losing races. It's like they all spawned off a bunch of Bob Shrums and stuck them down here and gave them to us. I mean, they're just losers.
Lobby.
Robbie Moose, all these people, they're just losers. And they just keep spawning off these people, and they keep sponging the money away from I think they're legitimate candidates. There's a mayor in Orlando, pretty good guy. Centrist, moderate, would not be your favorite, but he can win here. Not even approached, not even considered. We have no chance. Because, you're not going to be able to break through that wall.
Well, I guess we're gonna have to see. But it certainly feels like Demings is not making a splash, but it's very hard to assess from here. But Michael, as always, appreciate the perspective.
Sorry to be a blank. Good to hear you guys. Congratulations on your success. Very proud of all of you.
All right, talk to you later.
Take care.
Still owes me grapefruits.
Are you a grapefruit? Yeah. I'm
December.
He owes me grapefruits.
You like grapefruits?
I mean, the militant apathy says if you turn out black women, you win. And I guess the question is whether that will happen in Florida. Maybe we'll get it. I mean, I have no sense. Whatsoever. This is interesting along those lines. Here is Donald Trump doing his best to be a wrecker in Georgia, and I say thank you. He can't help himself. This is a rally in Georgia, in Perry, Georgia, this past Saturday.
When Stacey Abrams says, I'm not going to concede, that's okay. No problem. Oh, she's not going to concede. She's not going to concede. Of course, having her, I think, might be better than having your existing governor, if you want to know the truth. Might very well be better. But when she says that, no problem. When crooked Hillary Clinton says, don't ever concede, but she conceded. Of course, I got her at 3 o'clock in the morning. There was something going on there. But she conceded. She probably regrets it. But I never conceded because I saw what was happening, and I can't do it.
Is he referencing that she was like up all night doing drugs or something?
I don't know if that was the 3 a.m. phone call.
I think it's probably a
ad.
reference to the fact that she took a while to concede, even though it was clear. But all right.
Yeah.
Hard to decipher.
Don't vote. Electoralism has failed. Don't even bother showing up on election day.
Stacey Abrams for governor.
And if you're going to, you better vote for that woman, Stacey. You
Get
know, her and I
involved.
have their disagreements, but she might be better than the guy you've got now.
No, you might as well let her win, but don't even bother with electoral politics. It's already proven to have failed. Do all your stuff in movements, go to protests, but don't bother voting.
And please buy my merch.
I mean, that's. I wonder what kind of impact that Trump is going to have on there. I mean, I wonder if that actually depresses the vote. I mean, it's fascinating to me. Like,
It's a little early. No?
You can't trust the system.
It might be, but there's no reason to think that he's not going to keep doing that. Those lines got good laughs. So I'm going to go for him again.
I'm really curious about the line of blacks for Trump behind him.
A lot. I noticed that.
That guy's been there. There's write-ups on that guy.
He goes
to like
everyone.
some cult, sort of like religious cult thing in Florida. I think that he basically just he's a roadie for Trump.
I have met him a few times.
Is it that guy? Well, does he have a bus?
I don't know. He just kind of appears, and he's always like in the VIP area.
Oh, he's right up front.
Yeah. And so it looks like he's recruited a few more folks to stand in just a random area of the stage. Completely.
Right next to racist Granny. Did you notice that?
I did not, but I think it's quite clear what the Trump people are going for with the placement of those people. Blacks for Trump, their T-shirt says. They're not even
those guys were
sugarcoating
around
it.
for a long time.
I
They've
know,
been
but
around.
the OG guy is the one we're referencing here. Anyway, staple of the Trump rally circuit back in my old days.
Those were the days. Those were the days where you could say lock her up instead of lock him up.
Mhm.
That's the kind of stuff I like. Statistical nut job. This is probably going to be the last I read of yours. Thanks for discussing my question. I did understand that age is just one reason, no debating, but also want to point out that you mixed up the numbers. The counties where 10 died out of 100,000 were not counties where Biden won, but they were counties where Trump won by less than 32%. I am now going to quote from the article, A Statistical Nut Job. In counties where Trump won less than 32% of the vote, not by less than 32% of the vote, in counties where Trump won less than 32% of the vote. In other words, in counties where Trump won less than 32% of the vote. That means that he did not win more than 32% of the vote. There were two people running. The other 68% was won by Joe Biden. Maybe it was 65% and a couple of people voted for some other people. But so you're reading that wrong. So good day, statistical nut job. I understand where you got your moniker. Speaking of nut jobs, do you remember Naomi Wolf when she was actually like a scholar before something happened? I mean, this is...
She worked for Clinton.
Yes.
In the Clinton White House, yeah.
And she was a well-regarded feminist writer. And then sometime during the late Bush years, she became really, and I remember interviewing her around that time, like unhealthily convinced that we were falling into a fascist state. And then it was off to the races. She had multiple sort of like scandals about her academic work, and is now like a full-on anti-vaxxer. And
just to talk just quickly touch on anxiety related to anti-vaxxers. If you're like maybe having that kind of extreme anxiety about a fascist state that doesn't seem proportional to reality, like you can understand some of the underlying, I think, ways that this conversation is pushed forward by people who might like be a little obsessive in certain areas.
Oh, it's like the government's coming for you, and don't trust anything that they endorse or brand. And big pharma too, by the way, and socialism and rabbit hole.
This is the type of person that Tucker Carlson has on his show. People who espouse, conspiracy theories and whatnot. And she is the latest guest on Tucker Carlson.
That is gone, and they've deconstructed it. And so now it's all about, like, what are the infection rates? Who's to blame? Are the red states to blame? Are the bikers to blame? Instead, we should be going back to American values in which we are responsible for ourselves. Sometimes there are medical crises, typhus, cholera, AIDS, polio, but we don't moralize it. We just get through it, and everyone keeps...
She just said we don't moralize in relation to, of all of those ones, the ones that sticks out most blatantly, the AIDS. You're right. There was no moralizing during the AIDS crisis by the right wing in this country. The Reagan administration's entire non-response to AIDS was because they derisively called it, what was it, the gay plague or the gay flu? And then they would often say, oh, well, or at least that was from the Reagan administration. And I believe, I forget who, I read these unearthed transcripts and documents of it recently. And then, of course, the entire right-wing discourse around it was, well, these are drug addicts who deserved it because they used filthy needles. And the only way that you're a woman and you get AIDS is if you slept with a bisexual man. Gross. And so you probably deserved it, and you were probably promiscuous. The entire response to AIDS was a moralizing political response, lack of response.
And I'm sorry, I am quite sure that many of those those potential epidemics, I guess, there was a ton of moralizing. Do your duty.
Here's a case study about typhoid. Typhoid and the politics of public health in 19th century Philadelphia. Lincoln and Steffens describes Philadelphia as corrupt and contented. The city's failure to provide clean water for its residents and the consequent continuation of widespread typhoid fever epidemics into the 20th century reinforced Philadelphia's bad image. Kind of like red state, blue state, that sort of thing. Other cities had managed to solve their water problems earlier, and therefore it seems fair to ask why Philadelphians delayed funding the filtration system that would ultimately end a citywide typhoid epidemic.
And I'm quite convinced that with all communicable diseases, there is an element of you must take responsibility to either from a public policy standpoint. Make sure you have clean water. Make sure that there's plumbing. Make sure that people aren't taking craps in the streets type of situation. So what she's saying is completely ahistorical and made up. But go back because that's her jam.
Values in which we are responsible for ourselves. Sometimes there are medical crises, typhus, cholera, AIDS, polio, but we don't moralize it. We just get through it, and everyone keeps the laws and their rights intact.
Right, so you're from San Francisco. You went to the famous Lowell High School in San Francisco. You're very much a product of that city. Wonderful city.
And what are you, Tucker?
Which was the epicenter of the AIDS epidemic in 81, 82, 83, and, for 40 years. We self-consciously didn't do that.
Thank you.
And I'm glad. I mean, I don't, blaming people who are dying, it's like the ugliest thing you could do. Hepatitis, which killed an awful lot of people, is spread primarily through.
Tucker Carlson knows enough that was literally the cri de coeur of the Reagan administration.
Yeah.
It's their fault. Also, when they weren't literally laughing.
I mentioned San Francisco. Tucker Carlson, remember in his yearbook, had the Dan White Society listed as one of his alumni, along with the Jesse Helms Foundation.
Yep.
Dan White is the guy who shot Harvey Milk. Continue.
And I'm glad. I mean, I don't, blaming people who are dying, it's like the ugliest thing you could do. Hepatitis, which killed an awful lot of people, is spread primarily through sharing needles. We don't do it there either. Why?
Pause it 1 second.
What?
The idea that there hasn't been an enormous resistance to clean needle programs in this country is just, I don't know. It's like saying that there's no gravity. I mean, this has been for decades. There has been enormous resistance to clean needle programs. I mean,
even with Democrats, there has.
Yes.
And especially with conservatives.
Across the board.
Yeah.
Across the board.
The moral majority back in the 80s had a headline called on the Moral Majority Report. Someone tweeted this at me and I just looked it up to confirm it. Homosexual diseases threaten American families. That's just like an example of the kind of lack of moralizing that was happening during that time.
Good.
Hepatitis, which killed an awful lot of people, is spread primarily through sharing needles. We don't do it there either. Why now?
Well, because if you don't moralize it, you can't gain control over an entire free society.
Don't question.
No, these are the questions that should be being asked. And I think the AIDS crisis, the HIV crisis, is a perfect model of how different the expectations are now, because I remember that time well. I was, a young woman in a city. And people were learning about this very scary disease.
AIDS was sexually transmitted, not by air.
Yeah. And weren't there people back then refusing to wear condoms in a bit of a anti-masks? I
don't know that became a political movement. Right. I mean, I think, there was, if anything, to the extent that there was movement, it was people, sort of
demonizing gay people.
Well, yes. And but I mean, in terms of the condom front, more people started wearing condoms.
Yeah.
But I don't think there was, nobody's there in the moment in which you're using those. I mean, somebody's there, but not.
I'm going to make a
not more than one person. But
there were like some sociopaths who started to, but that had nothing to do with politics. It just had to do with.
Yeah. All right. Well,
remember that woman.
That's but that's not. That's not a movement there. And you find some outlier, one person. We have massive data. We have governors preventing people from wearing masks. But the idea that this has all been about government control, this is the thing that gets propagated, because this is the foundation to all the anti-mask and anti-vaccine conspiracy theories. And so you could say, I am against the authoritarian impulse here. That what this college is doing, what this governor is doing, what this mayor is doing is like the response to 9/11 when we started to spy on Muslim people. We created a security theater. This is just absurd. The idea that like first off, why deploy a vaccine? Why say that it is effective at that point? Like why would we see death rates going down? It doesn't, none of this tracks with that fundamental building block of this is an exercise by governments to train people to be authoritarian. It is, and you hear people like, a lot of it gets disseminated on that show from people who are ostensibly of the left, who are worried about the authoritarianism. And it is patently absurd. There is no logic to what they are expressing. Like the idea that now we're all vaccinated. I mean, I get the idea that look, this is made up by the pharmaceutical companies to make a ton of money. But why do they have a vaccine in Cuba?
Yeah,
why do they have a vaccine in Cuba?
And the authoritarianism point, I've got to make this because I almost forgot to. Branko Markotic wrote this in Jacobin about Hitler and the Nazis' stances on compulsory vaccinations, because you hear this on the right wing. Oh, this is just like Hitler. Okay, for example, Hitler actually was in favor of compulsory vaccines, but only for Germans and white Germans, because they thought that the disease, it would be more effective if it spread amongst people, and they wanted to preserve vaccinations for as a part of their genocidal goals. So like there is a complete ahistoricism when you're talking about the fascist designs of this government and trying to save people in the middle of a pandemic. In fact, the biggest example we have of fascist authoritarianism in the 20th century, they were in favor of vaccinations, but only for the select few as a part of a larger genocidal project.
Well, and I mean, but even now, it's like with the inequity of distribution of vaccines. I mean, that's another case in point. Like, look through into the entire continent of Africa, impoverished countries, like they're still having issues dispersing them in a timely way, in a safe way, so that they're actually being distributed. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, then you look at the other one. It's like this, the monitoring. When I open up my Facebook page, God forbid I do that ever again. And some guy I went to high school with does this entire rant, and he has like 350 comments on it. This is like a random person, right? This isn't somebody who's like a famous. And it's all about, they're still doing the chip thing. It's still part of the conversation. So if it's not about a pharmaceutical, the 5G chip, whatever it is,
and the magnet stuff. Yes, no, of course. But the point is that the way that you cannot get to 5G, you cannot get to masks are, affecting your neurology. You cannot get there without the first sort of building block of this is authoritarianism.
Right. But so that's what I'm saying is if it's not about health, then they conveniently have another excuse for the people who are not, the pharma excuse doesn't work. The authoritarianism pharma excuse, it goes to they're spying on us, they're monitoring. They have every base covered for the type of conspiracy theorists that they want to bring in and select.
Or how about it hasn't gotten full approval? Now it has full approval. Oh, well, I mean, not all of them, not all three. The mRNA is changing your DNA. Well, what about the separate technology in the Johnson & Johnson one? Oh, well, I mean, I don't have, I'm not in favor of that for some... Like there's nothing. There's the next layer is just the next excuse they can cook.
Again, but I keep repeating myself, but the important thing I think is the thing that they all will say, ultimately, it comes back to this concept of authoritarianism. It is, I mean, because without that, it's just sort of like, why? Right? Like all the variants of the conspiracy theories. It magnetizes you. It does this and that, or all the fears. There has to be a fundamental reason as to why someone would do this.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what the ill effects are. The motivation all has to boil down to some sort of nebulous notion of authoritarianism. Because that's the only thing that I guess, like you could say Cuba and the United States, I mean, different elite, but Matt, go ahead.
Oh, I mean, I was just going to make my point that this is all like to distract from the real coercion that's going on in society right now, which is like, we're not going to extend the eviction moratorium. We're going to cancel out unemployment benefits. Maybe we'll do something about student loans, maybe not, but maybe you should look for a job in the meantime, just in case.
Right. Like if this was about, asserting control, why wouldn't you? Or at least control by the state. Why wouldn't you just extend unemployment benefits?
Yeah.
Like why not? Why wouldn't you double and triple them?
Take people out of the...
I mean, it's like, so is Joe Manchin really the freedom fighter here? I'm fighting back against the authoritarian control because we need to have a rewarding mentality, not an entitlement mentality. I mean, it is complete and utter BS. Complete and utter BS. All right, we got 10 minutes here. I'm going to take one more call, and then we're going to do some IMs and get going. However, we should just tell you this before we take this call. Jayapal just released a press release from the Congressional Progressive Caucus Twitter account. It was about 30 minutes ago. We just wrapped a meeting of our 96-member caucus, and we are clear our position on infrastructure and Build Back Better remains unchanged. We will not leave anyone behind.
Nice. Well, that doesn't.
I don't know how to
that's not as
interpret that.
specific.
Yeah, like we won't vote on this. We're going to vote, no, but we'll see. Calling from a 503 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Good morning from Portland. This is Brett Weinstein. No. This is actually George Minaj. Yeah, right. Okay. Yep. This is George Minaj. And okay, I think there are two things that we need to add to cap this off, though. I will try to keep them brief. Okay. The first point I wanted to make, many will remember that Matt Lech and I had a confrontation. I said that he needed to apologize, but upon looking at the evidence in this case, I think my sense is actually that I must own up to the fact that it was me specifically that needed to apologize to the majority report, and almost certainly Matt Lech. Okay, I now feel that issue is clear enough. Nonetheless, final thing. My basic point would be this. There's something that needs to be said here, referring to the straw manning of Dark Horse, in this case, me specifically, and almost certainly anybody in the adult world, from Sam Harris. Okay, I don't want to hear any more of this garbage. So, how did I end up in this spot? My point here is really, I know Sam would never intentionally strawman another person, but I must say it took me a long time to figure out that Sam has found himself strawmanning everybody in the adult world. And I must say there are nightly attacks. That is what we are playing with. Now, this strikes me as insane. There's something that is distorting our ability to understand what the evidence actually implies in a direction from which we will not recover. Because Sam shows up drunk to make the podcast he released where Sam is struggling to make
Excuse me, can I interrupt for one moment?
Critique of what we've been doing. That should tell you something.
Can I interrupt for 1 second?
This person does not.
Is this a recording?
Thank you. I am going to beg you to email and tell me what program you're using and how you did this. That was...
I just want to say apology accepted, Brett.
Yeah.
Yes. It takes a very big man.
Thing. What has gone on with Sam is at least a, I don't know how to say it more gently, a danger to the Republic. I say that because any honest broker, if it's me specifically, for an all-black militia group, upon looking at the evidence, somebody as capable as Sam must own up to the fact that he has ended up somewhere that should cause all of us to be scratching our heads. Sam is insane. He has no integrity. The podcast he released is not in the adult world. It is painting a target on us that was foreseeably going to end in violence against us on totally false pretenses. And then what he doesn't do is say it to our fucking faces.
Okay.
I'm not angry at Sam. I'm not even hurt. I want Sam to see that my point here is really, I want Sam to apologize, and I'm actually not fucking around in this case on this logical map. And that is actually the required action unless something utterly extraordinary happens. I have held my fire because Sam was a friend, but I don't want to hear any more of this garbage. I never wanted him canceled, but the straw manning of Dark Horse seems to me specifically to be justification for a cancellation. He needs to be canceled. But anyway, if you describe it as cancel culture, that's your failure.
Oh my God, that was amazing. Wow.
Maybe that was Jimmy Dore as Brett Weinstein.
Okay. Folks, we're out of time for phone calls. There's one other sentence in that statement. We articulated this position more than 3 months ago, and today it is still unchanged. Progressives will vote for both bills, but a majority of our members will only vote for the infrastructure bill after the president's visionary Build Back Better Act passes.
A majority of us. That means, 96 Progressive Caucus members?
Close to 50.
Close to 50. Good. Jayapal's got the shit down.
Well, I mean, that is a pretty specific statement.
Yes.
To put out 36 hours before the vote, if you're not prepared to vote against it. I mean, I think they must have gone into the caucus and they said, "This is it. We either just disband as a caucus or we do this."
Also, keep in mind here that this centrist gang, they're putting everybody else at risk for reelection. Like that is why Nancy Pelosi, I think, is moving in this way, because it's not that they're at risk of losing their seats, which they are. It's that the others are at risk of losing their seats if nothing is passed, if nothing substantial is passed. Exactly.
I mean, I think like the interesting dynamic here is, I don't think that this, I am of the mind that if the Democrats do well in the midterm election, it's going to be because of negative partisanship. But this is the baseline that they have to start that negative partisanship on, because otherwise they're just going to bleed too much of their own people who otherwise, you cannot give your base, and just broadly speaking, a reason not to come out. And then from that, once you've established that foundation, then you give them a reason to come out. And I think the positive reason to come out is actually negative partisanship in this instance. Like, I don't think that they're going to pass this. And I would love to live in a world where if they passed exactly what I wanted them to pass, right? And it's not going to be that. Exactly what Bernie Sanders said to pass in this iteration, right? The $3.5 trillion. I don't think you're going to win an election on that. It's not sufficient. It's necessary, but it's insufficient. But if they don't pass this, there is no chance.
Yeah.
And it creates an opening. I mean, it's a little late for some of these situations, and some of them do have primaries, but I don't think this is what's happening, but it would be a great opportunity to leverage some primaries against some of these Democrats who are trying to play it both ways, who are in the Progressive Caucus, pretending to be progressive, but of course, are corporate hacks.
All right. I got to go in 2 minutes. Just one more thing. Schumer says going through reconciliation is risky to the country and is a non-starter on the debt limit. Now, I don't know if he's talking about going through reconciliation in terms of the $3.5 trillion. There is, my understanding is, and I have talked to 3 different people who know about this, and they have all told me some variant of a different thing. There is a specific reconciliation that is available for the debt ceiling. It's going to be a huge pain, but that is probably what they're going to do. But it doesn't seem like anybody knows. All right. 10 IMs. Count them out for me, Emma. Imran, Emma, Sam, please accept you are sounding more and more like MSNBC, trying to see sausage making where there is none. This is the same person who does this every day.
We've been paid off.
After so many years of covering corporate Democrats and their recklessness, you're acting shocked when Pelosi has stabbed progressives is laughable and sad. First off, I'm not acting shocked. We are... I mean, I'll tell you what I will be really shocked about is if the Progressive Caucus actually holds. That is what's going to be the shocking part. And like I say, it appears that they're going to, it appears right now anyways, that they're going to. I have been appearing on MSNBC. Now, granted, this past year, I have not been on MSNBC nearly as much as I have been for the other 15, 16 years I've been doing this. The first time I appeared on MSNBC, Scarborough Country. That's how, at 10 p.m. at night, it was, RNC 2004. So to say that we're sounding more and more like MSNBC, I can assure you is simply something that you have not been listening to. I am sounding exactly the same.
Sam, that was before Jimmy Dore's talking points were distributed to the internet to use that as a line of attack against us because he wants to steal audience.
No, this is not Jimmy Dore. This is, I think, somebody else who is who likes to use these as evidence of our numbers or our people being upset with us. But you're my favorite boomer. I just want to say to those same people, I'm not a boomer. Okay.
Gen X.
Militant apathy. Oh, we already read that one. All right. Sam Stones. Sinema OnlyFans when? Ben Shabibo. I had a question for...
Oh, I forgot to count. Sorry. 4.
All right, 4.
Thanks, Bradley.
Sorry.
I mean, I totally was counting the whole time.
And 9. Can I get a shofar for Discord mod DJ Cold Case to celebrate her 69th birthday today? Happy birthday. And share a birthday with Janine Garofalo. North Dakota Tall Mama. Hello, Sam and crew. Not usually want to make a shofar request, but my mom just got her test results back and is officially cancer-free after 7-month-long chemo battle with breast cancer. How many, Emma?
That's 5.
Fletch Nasty. Corpus Christi has free monoclonal treatment with a referral from a doctor. Just a heads up. All right. I almost hit the thing. Emma's Posit Fund. Whoa. Am I going to need to recover from these high-level ideas? Bob Carmody. I would like to invite you to amazing business opportunity. Sheep drench is the COVID cure sweeping the nation. Just sell to your friends and you can make millions. Call 1-800-SHEEP-DRENCH for your one-in-lifetime chance. Aveline Garcias. Hassan watches you guys, pretty much starts his show as soon as you guys finish, then shits on us. I like to think of it as a daisy chain. Really tugs at the, okay. Well, how many am I at now?
You're wait, I thought it was over 5.
Ban Dungino. I was doing 10. That Trump rally also had women in MAGA clonal Asian hats in the background. And
the final.
The final I am of the day. The Chris Lapaco, hell yeah. There were anti-condom organizations, namely the Catholic Church. Matt, Bradley, Nomi, Emma, check out Nomi's show tomorrow. And of course, Matt's tomorrow. See you tomorrow.
Nice.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking